Story 1. I don't believe in ghosts. Never have. But something happened in 2021 that I still can't explain, and I've given up trying. At the time, I was living with my wife in a small 2-bedroom apartment in West New York, New Jersey. 10th floor, corner unit, decent view of the Hudson if you crane your neck right. The place was older, with creaky floors and those yellow-tinted walls you get when landlords paint over stains instead of cleaning them. It wasn't glamorous, but rent was manageable, and the building was quiet. Now, my wife always said the kitchen had a weird feel to it. She wouldn't go in there at night unless every single light was on. I'd catch her staring at the doorway sometimes, like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. She'd tell me, "It's cold in there, even when the heat's blasting," or "It feels like something's watching me." I used to laugh it off. I'm not superstitious. I work IT, I believe in routers and power surges and faulty wiring, not ghosts. But then that day happened. This one specific day I can't forget. And I've never felt the same about that apartment, or about anything really. It was a Sunday. My wife was out shopping with her sister, so I had the place to myself. I had just settled into the couch in the living room, about to start a new campaign on Halo. I remember because I had just put fresh batteries into my controller the day before, and I even checked them with a tester, full charge. So I hit start, get maybe a minute into the cutscene, and the controller just cuts out. I press the buttons. Nothing. Dead. I figured, okay, maybe the batteries were junk. No big deal. I toss it aside and grab the backup controller from the drawer. Same thing. Completely dead. No lights, no response. Now I'm annoyed. I go for the TV remote to switch over to regular cable. Also dead. No response. I try the receiver remote. Nothing. Then the Fios remote. Dead. That's 4 remotes in a row. I remember standing there holding all of them in both hands like I was missing something obvious. So I grabbed my laptop off the table. It was plugged in all night. Batteries at 0%. Completely off. I'm thinking maybe we lost power, but the lights are still on. The fridge is humming. My electric razor in the bathroom works. The microwave clock is still running. It's not a power outage. I try my phone next, thinking I'll Google what could cause something like this. I pick it up. It's dead. Battery icon shows 1% for half a second, then the screen goes black. That's when I felt it. Not a breeze, not a sound, not anything obvious. Just this presence. Heavy, like something standing in the room that wasn't supposed to be there. I was still facing the TV, but I got that horrible feeling you get when you know someone's behind you, staring at the back of your neck. I turned around. No one. But the kitchen light was on. Now this is where it gets weird. That light above the stove was one of those tiny dome lights with a twist switch, and it never worked the whole time we lived there. We tried replacing the bulb, checked the wiring, nothing. It stayed dead. But right then, it was glowing. Dim at first, then brighter. I could see it from the living room, flickering a little, but getting stronger. And from where I was sitting, I could see the edge of the kitchen doorway. Just the edge. I swear to God, I swear. There was a shadow that wasn't supposed to be there. It was standing just out of view, like someone was around the corner, just barely keeping themselves hidden. The light from the ceiling behind it created this outline, a human shape, shoulders, head, still as hell, just standing there. I froze. I didn't move a muscle. My mouth got dry, and every part of my brain started screaming, "Do not go in there. Don't look. Don't acknowledge it." So I didn't. Instead, I said out loud, like an idiot, I don't know why I said it. I said, "What do you want?" No answer. But every remote on the table, every single one, slid about an inch to the left, all at once. No noise, no vibration, just this smooth, unnatural glide across the coffee table, like someone invisible had nudged them. I jumped up, full body jolt, and I backed away from the couch, never taking my eyes off that kitchen doorway. And then everything just stopped. The light in the kitchen shut off, all at once, like someone flicked a switch. The outline disappeared. The heaviness in the room lifted, just vanished. I waited maybe a full minute before moving. Then I grabbed my phone and tried turning it on. It booted normally. 87% battery. Laptop, also fine. No dead battery. The remotes all worked. The Xbox controller turned back on like nothing ever happened. Nothing was broken. Nothing was drained. It was like the entire apartment had just glitched for 5 minutes. My wife came home later, and before I could even finish telling her what happened, she said, "I told you it was the kitchen." I don't have a better explanation. I checked the circuit panel, the surge protector, every damn thing I could think of. Nothing was tripped. Nothing was out of place. And after that day, nothing ever happened again. Not a peep, not a flicker. That dead kitchen light never turned on again either. Not once. We moved out 6 months later. Not because of that, but I can't lie, I didn't fight it when she said she wanted to leave. I still don't believe in ghosts, but I also don't go near kitchens in the dark anymore, especially ones with lights that shouldn't work. Story 2, I grew up just outside of Springfield, Illinois, in a quiet little suburb where nothing much ever happened. People left their doors unlocked, kids rode their bikes until dark, and everyone knew everyone. My name's Rachel, and I've never believed in ghosts, demons, or anything like that. I still don't know what exactly I believe now, but something happened when I was 7 that I've never been able to explain or forget, and I've tried. It was a school field trip. We were doing a unit on Abraham Lincoln, and our teacher took us to the Lincoln Museum downtown. I remember how bored I was walking through the exhibit halls. A bunch of mannequins dressed like they were from a time no one cared about. Faded paintings, old books, dusty flags. None of it meant anything to me. Then we got to this part of the tour where the guide was talking about the things Lincoln owned when he died. His hat, a Bible, and then the chair. The chair he was supposedly shot in had been too badly damaged, but this was the one from his house. The one he sat in every night by the fire, they said. A big wooden rocker with faded upholstery. It sat under a spotlight in a roped-off section of the room. That's when it happened. I was near the back of the group because I'd gotten distracted looking at some old medals. But the moment I turned and saw that chair, my heart stopped. There was a woman sitting in it. Not just any woman. She looked like something from another time. She had this brown dress that puffed at the shoulders, a bonnet tied loosely under her chin, and her hair was in these old-fashioned braids wound up tight. She was knitting, her needles clicking in this slow, steady rhythm. The chair rocked back and forth like it was the only thing moving in the room. And she was looking down at her hands, calm, like she'd been doing it for hours. Nobody else was reacting. That's what froze me in place. I looked at my friend Emily next to me and nudged her, but she just rolled her eyes and kept looking at the posters on the wall. I looked back at the chair and she was gone. The chair was empty, completely still. No motion, no woman, nothing. I remember how my skin went cold instantly. My stomach twisted like I was about to throw up. I didn't say anything to the teacher. I didn't say anything on the bus ride back. It felt too strange to talk about. Like if I said it out loud, it would make it worse. But that night at home, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The way her fingers moved so calmly. The way the chair creaked as she rocked. I could still hear it. I couldn't sleep. A few days later, I finally told my mom. I expected her to laugh or tell me I imagined it, but she didn't. She got real quiet, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Was she knitting?" I nodded. She said, "I saw the same woman when I was your age. Same place, same chair." I don't know what scared me more, seeing the woman or knowing someone else had seen her too. Years went by. I tried to chalk it up to my imagination. Maybe I just projected something onto the chair. But that chair, it stuck with me. Always. The image was too clear. I can still see it now. The way the light hit her pale face. The way she didn't look up once. I never went back to the museum. I avoid even driving by it if I can. A few months ago, I looked it up on a whim, just to see if anyone else had ever mentioned anything about that chair. I found a forum thread where someone said they'd seen a woman sitting in the same spot. Rocking, knitting. They said she looked right at them. I'm glad she never looked up at me. I don't know what I would have done if she had. That's all that ever happened to me. Just one moment, one glimpse. But it changed everything. I never believed in ghosts, not really, but I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And when people say they've seen things, I don't roll my eyes anymore, because some things don't need to happen twice to be real. Story 3. I live in Terre Haute, Indiana. Not exactly the place you'd expect anything weird to happen, but I've learned better. My mom's worked as a music teacher at Franklin Elementary for over 10 years. The school's got that old smell, you know? Wood floors, old pipes, stale air. It's a weird building, half renovated, half forgotten. The gym is the worst part. It's huge, echoey, freezing all year, and it's where her office is tucked behind the stage. She's told me things. Doors slamming when no one's around, footsteps above the ceiling tiles, voices caught on the baby monitor she keeps for after-school classes. I always thought it was just the acoustics or her imagination. You hear enough weird sounds in an old school, and your brain fills in the blanks. That's what I thought. But then one day, she called me, totally shaken, told me I needed to come pick her up. She didn't want to be in the building alone. She was pale when I got there, like she hadn't slept, just kind of staring off. She told me something happened with one of her students. I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe a kid had a meltdown or saw a mouse. But a week later, I saw it for myself. It was a Monday around 5 in the evening. I was waiting to give her a ride home. She was finishing up a lesson with one of her private students, a little girl named Ava, maybe 6 or 7, tiny, blonde, super sweet. I waited on the bleachers while they practiced some keyboard scales. I remember zoning out, watching the sky turn pink through the high windows. Then Ava asked, "Where'd he go?" It wasn't really a question, more like confusion. She was looking toward the open space behind the curtain on the stage. My mom stopped playing. "Who, honey?" "The boy," Ava said. "He was right there." I looked too, expecting to see another kid. Maybe someone wandered in, but the stage was empty. You could see straight to the gray brick wall in the back. Nobody. "What boy?" my mom asked. Ava pointed. "The one I was playing with. He was playing tag. He said his name was Luke." I stood up. "There's no one here but us," I said. Ava just blinked. She wasn't scared. She wasn't even really upset. Just puzzled. "He was just there," she mumbled. We all got quiet. You could hear the building creaking, those long, low groans of old metal and air ducts settling. My mom stepped toward the stage, pulled the curtain back more. "Luke," she called. Her voice echoed weird. Nothing. She looked back at me. "Let's check the hallway." I followed her out of the gym and down the corridor that runs behind the stage. There are storage rooms, a little costume closet, and a staircase that leads down to the boiler room. We checked everything. Every door, every closet, nothing. When we got back to the gym, Ava was sitting cross-legged on the floor, talking quietly to the corner of the room. Mom's voice went tight. "Ava, who are you talking to?" Ava smiled. "I said he can't go home with me. I said no." We both just stood there for a second. You ever feel something shift in a room? Like the air changes, just a tiny bit? Heavier, maybe, or colder. I can't explain it. My scalp prickled. I wanted to leave. I crouched next to her. "Ava, is someone there right now?" She didn't answer. Just stared into the corner. The lights above us flickered. Not a little flicker, like a full blackout for a second. I remember hearing that electric click noise when everything came back on. My mom grabbed her phone. "We're done for today," she said quickly. "Let's call your parents." We packed up fast. Mom didn't say much until we were outside. Then she turned to me and said, "That's the third kid that's seen him." I just stared at her. "What do you mean?" She looked toward the school building like she was afraid it might hear her. "It's always the same story. A little boy, says his name's Luke. He plays with them, then disappears when I walk in. They act like it's normal. Then they realize he's not there. One kid even cried when we couldn't find him. Said we made Luke hide." I didn't say anything. She kept going. "A custodian told me years ago, before I started working here, that a boy died here in the 70s. Fell from the catwalk above the stage. I thought it was just some creepy story staff passed around. But now, I don't know anymore." Ava's parents picked her up and she didn't mention anything else about Luke. Not a word. Like it never happened. But that night, when I was helping my mom bring some of her stuff in from the car, I found something. A drawing, folded and tucked into her music binder. Crayon on construction paper. A stick figure boy with a giant head and black scribbles for eyes. And next to him, a stick figure girl. They were holding hands, underneath in shaky kid handwriting, me and Luke. I asked her if she saw it. She said no. Ava never showed her anything. We burned the paper in the sink. Nothing's happened since then. Not that I know of. But I won't go near that gym again. Not ever. And I think about Ava sometimes. About how calm she was. How she just accepted it. Like she really thought Luke was real. Maybe to her, he was. I still don't believe in ghosts. I don't want to. But if he wasn't real, then who the hell was she talking to? Story 4. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody's business, and half the buildings are older than anyone alive. My mom's worked at this local museum for years. Used to be a Victorian house, now turned into a historical society. I never paid much attention to it. Looked like any other creepy old house, with its creaky porch and peeling paint. But there's a spire at the top with a windowed turret room, and for some reason, people always talked about seeing someone up there. Always a girl. I used to brush it off. Urban legends, small-town boredom. People will see what they want to see. My mom mentioned it once or twice, but more like it was a joke. She said she talks to the ghost when she locks up at night, says goodbye to Mr. Weller, the guy who originally lived there. She also said sometimes she hears footsteps upstairs when she knows no one else is in the house, or that she sees something flicker past her in the corner of her eye when she's alone. She never made a big deal of it. Just weird little things. Creepy, sure, but I figured it was just an old house doing old house things. But then something happened. One time, one night, and now I can't even look at that house without feeling sick. It was last December. My mom had come down with the flu, and there was this fundraiser or event or something she was supposed to help set up for. She didn't want to call off and asked if I could swing by after my shift at the hardware store to drop off some decorations and paperwork. Just leave it in the office, she said. I didn't want to, but I didn't really have an excuse not to. I got there around 6:30, just after dark. Snow on the ground, sky completely black. The museum was already closed, so I had to use the spare key she gave me. The place was cold as hell inside. I stepped in and immediately remembered how quiet it gets in there when it's empty. No traffic outside, no hum of heaters or lights, just stillness. I walked through the narrow hallway and into the office near the back, dropped the bag of stuff onto her desk. I was about to leave when I remembered I needed to write a note saying it was from me, just so the other staff wouldn't think some random person dropped it off. I couldn't find a pen on her desk, so I started opening drawers. That's when I heard it. Footsteps upstairs, slow, deliberate, like someone walking from one side of the floor to the other. No hesitation, just steady pacing right above me. I froze. My first instinct was to call out, so I did. I shouted, "Hello?" and listened. The footsteps stopped. Silence again. I stood there for maybe 20 seconds, waiting for something. Anything. Then it hit me. No one else should have been in the house. My mom was sick at home, the place was closed, and she had the only other key. I don't know why I did this, but I walked into the hall and looked up the staircase. It was pitch dark up there. I stood there staring at it, feeling this horrible pressure in my chest. My hands were sweating even though the air was freezing. And then I saw it. Up at the very top of the stairs, right where the hallway curves toward the turret room, someone was standing. I couldn't see her face, not really, but I could make out a white dress. She wasn't moving. She wasn't swaying or shifting or anything. Just standing. I whispered, "Hey, who's up there?" It came out quieter than I meant. Still nothing. She didn't move. I took a step backward, down the hallway, toward the door. I didn't take my eyes off her. My brain kept trying to come up with reasons. Maybe a squatter? Maybe another staff member came in and forgot to turn the lights on? But deep down, I knew. Right before I turned to run, she blinked. I swear to God she blinked. Her face didn't move, her body didn't move, but her eyes opened and closed, like she was trying to make sure I was still watching. It wasn't slow or exaggerated. It was like a real person blinking, casually, but it didn't fit. It felt wrong, unnatural. I bolted, ran straight out the front door without locking it, without turning off lights, without leaving a note. I got in my car and sat there with my hands shaking, staring at the turret window. And that's when I saw her again. She was standing in the window, same white dress, same stillness. Except this time, she was looking right at me, like dead on, into the car, into my eyes. And then she blinked again. Just once, a normal blink. But that's what destroyed me. Ghosts don't blink. Statues don't blink. People who don't move don't just blink casually like they're waiting for a bus. It was too human. But also, not. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember even putting the car in gear. I just remember sitting in my room hours later, all the lights on, door locked, phone in my lap, hands still shaking. I didn't tell my mom the full story for weeks. I couldn't. And when I finally did, she just went quiet. She didn't call me crazy. She didn't say I imagined it. She just said, I've never seen her, but others have. That's all. I never went back to that house. Haven't even driven past it since. Story 5. I live in a small town in northern Illinois, not too far from Rockford. Nothing special about it. Just one of those places where the grocery store still sells VHS tapes and the neighbor across the street still mows his lawn in slacks and suspenders. I work nights at the water plant, and my wife passed away 2 years ago in a car accident. Since then, it's just been me and my daughter, Ellie. She's 3 now, but this happened when she was just 2.5. It was a Wednesday night, cold enough that you could see your breath in the kitchen, but the heat was working fine. I remember that detail because it comes back to me every time I think about what happened. We were in her bedroom, sitting on the floor with all her stuffed animals in a big pile. It was a dumb little game we did before bed. I'd pick one up, and she'd make me give it a name. The names had to be funny, or she'd make a face and say, "No, try again." I named a purple giraffe Mr. Noodles, and she laughed until she got the hiccups. Then we named a one-eyed teddy bear Captain Blinky. She liked that one too. I remember how happy she was. It was one of those moments that made the rest of the day feel far away. Then out of nowhere, she got real quiet. I was mid-laugh and she just stopped. Sat there staring at the wall like she was trying to solve a math problem. I said, "Ellie, you okay?" She pointed at the wall across from us, totally blank except for a tiny frame photo of her mom. Just dry wall and shadow. She points right at it and says, "What's her name?" I looked where she was pointing and said, "Who?" "Honey, we already named everyone." She kept her finger out steady. "That little girl." I swear to God, I got this wave of something. Cold, but not like a draft. More like my body just knew something was wrong before I did. That kind of cold. I stood up and looked closer at the wall. Nothing there. Not a damn thing. I looked back at Ellie. She wasn't laughing anymore. Her eyes were wider than I'd ever seen. She didn't blink when I waved my hand between her and the wall. "Ellie," I said slowly, "there's nobody there." She kept staring. "She's sad." I crouched down. My hands were shaking, but I didn't want her to see that. "Who is, baby?" "The girl," she whispered. "She's cold and her feet are red." That's when I picked her up and walked out of the room. Didn't grab her toys, didn't turn off the light, nothing. We slept in the living room that night with the TV on. Cartoons playing all night, volume real low. I didn't sleep much. Every creak in the house sounded louder than normal. Around 2 a.m., I walked down the hall to check her room. Light still on. Empty. I even knocked on the wall she pointed at. Just wood and insulation. Next day, I asked her about it. I was hoping, praying she'd forgotten the whole thing. She didn't. We were eating cereal in the kitchen when she said, real casual, "The girl's not in my room anymore." I froze mid-chew. "Where is she now?" "She went down," Ellie said, spoon clinking in her bowl. "Down where?" She looked at the basement door. Didn't say a word. I didn't open that door for 3 days. When I finally did, it was because I thought I heard a noise down there. Like soft crying. Thought maybe a pipe was leaking or something. I grabbed a flashlight and went down slow, step by step, like an idiot in a horror movie. I kept thinking about how Ellie said the girl's feet were red. What the hell does that even mean? Basement was empty. Nothing weird, nothing broken, no sign of anything. I turned to head back up and froze. There were wet footprints on the bottom step, small ones, like a child's. I ran back up so fast I dropped the flashlight. Didn't even go back for it. That night I locked the basement door and pushed the dining room table in front of it. Sat up in the kitchen until dawn with a bat across my knees. Every once in a while, I'd hear creaking from the floorboards under me, like someone was walking around down there barefoot. Ellie never mentioned the girl again. We moved 6 months later. I couldn't take it anymore. The house felt wrong, like it had eyes. I still don't know what she saw. I don't know what I almost saw. Story 6. People always ask if being homeless was scary. It wasn't. Not the way they think. Cops were scary. Drunks with knives were scary. But the dark? Nah. You learn to work with it. I used to walk the desert at night, just to stay warm. Sun went down. I went walking. Sun came up. I crashed out in my little burrow till noon, then wandered into town for food. That was life for a while. This was about 7 years ago. Sierra Vista, Arizona. Middle of nowhere. Hot as hell in the day, freezing at night. I had been sleeping out there for 6 months. Got used to the silence, the coyotes, the crunch of your own boots in gravel. It becomes your world. Let me be clear before I go on. I wasn't high. I wasn't drunk. I hadn't slept in 30 hours, but that was normal for me back then. You stay up moving, you stay alive, and you only sleep when the sun is warm enough to keep you from freezing to death. Anyway, I had a sword, not a joke. Real steel, straight edge, about 3 feet long. Bought it when I still had a job and a bed. Kept it wrapped and strapped to my back when I walked at night, just in case I ran into a mountain lion or worse. Never actually used it, except to chop the ends off yucca stalks for my shelter roof. So this night, I'm maybe 4 or 5 miles out past the last row of lights in Sierra Vista. I liked that spot. There was this dried-up wash I followed with a couple of busted trees and weird-shaped rocks. It was about 1 in the morning. Cold enough to see my breath, sky full of stars. I was twirling this stick in my hand, just killing time and waiting for the sun. Then I hear this. Thump, thump. I stop walking. It's ahead of me. 2 dull thuds like something heavy jumping or landing. I wait. Nothing. Just the wind. So I bang my stick against a dead tree a couple times. I don't want to surprise a javelina or, God forbid, a bear. I make noise on purpose out there. Predators don't like surprises. Then something moves. A bush about 30 feet in front of me rustles, and something lifts its head over the top. Now I've seen coyotes, bobcats, all kinds of desert freaks. But this wasn't that. This was, man, I don't know. It had a face like a person, but stretched, flattened, huge black eyes like a gecko, 2 tufts on either side of its head, almost like ears, but they didn't move like ears, just sat there. Its skin was shiny, not wet shiny, scale shiny, and it blinked sideways. My stomach flipped. I reached over my shoulder and yanked at my sword fast. Forgot the strap was looped through my belt. I pulled so hard I ripped the whole sheath off and ended up holding the damn thing, still wrapped, in both hands like an idiot. The thing just stared at me, not moving. Then it stood up. 4 feet tall, maybe a little more. Long limbs, knees that bent the wrong way. It had this messed up stance, like its body wasn't used to gravity. And then, no warning, it just took off. It didn't run like a person. It bolted like an ostrich. Knees snapping up, arms loose, almost flailing. It was fast, unnaturally fast, but not smooth. Jerky, like it hadn't done it before. The kind of movement you feel in your teeth. It was gone in seconds, over the ridge and out of sight. I didn't chase it. I didn't move. I just stood there, sheathed sword in my hands, every hair on my body standing straight up. Then I swear to God something hit my chest. Not hard, just a pressure, like someone was pushing a cold rock into my sternum. It stayed for a second and then faded. Nothing was there. I looked. I checked myself. Nothing. But I felt it. Like it didn't like me. Like it marked me. I walked back to my burrow. Didn't run. Didn't cry. I walked. I watched the hills. Watched the sky. I didn't hear a single sound the whole way back. Next day, the Salvation Army was giving out fried chicken and mashed potatoes. I sat in the back corner and didn't talk to anybody. I don't go past the lights anymore. I stay in town. I sleep near people now, even if it means fighting for a spot. I gave the sword away. Whatever that thing was, I wasn't supposed to see it, and I don't think it was supposed to see me either. Story 7. I grew up in a nowhere town in western Pennsylvania. I won't say the name, it doesn't matter. It's one of those places with too many trees, cracked sidewalks, and neighbors who sit on their porch every night chain smoking like it's still 1987. I live in northern Michigan now, and I haven't been back there in years. But there's one thing from that town I still carry. It happened when I was 12. My little sister Lisa was 10. We were out in the woods across the street from our house. Just a small, dense patch of trees. It wasn't big. You could see all the way through it if the light was right. No trails, no creeks, just leaves, fallen branches, and the kind of silence that makes you pay attention. That summer, all the neighborhood kids used those woods like a playground. I don't remember what game we were playing that day, maybe hide and seek, but Lisa and I ended up crouched behind a big log, trying not to laugh. Then we heard it, a sound I'll never forget. Not a snap, not a rustle. It was a deep, solid thump, like something heavy had dropped from way up and landed hard, but without breaking anything. The ground under me felt like it jumped. I looked up. Lisa did too. There was something in the tree above us. Not a raccoon, not a bird, not a person. It was crouched in the branches, maybe 15 feet up. It had legs, long ones, bent at the knees like a person squatting. The body was covered in fur, dark brown or black, but not shaggy like a bear. Thick, heavy. It wasn't moving. It was just sitting there, watching us. I couldn't breathe. Lisa didn't make a sound. We just stared at it. Its face, God, I still see it when I close my eyes. It wasn't human, but it was trying to be. The mouth was too long, like it stretched back further than it should. And the eyes were spaced wrong, too far apart, like someone guessed what a face should look like and messed it up. But those eyes, they weren't glowing or anything. They were just aware. It looked at us like it had been watching for a while, like it had chosen us. Then it jumped. It didn't climb down. It didn't drop like an animal. It launched itself from the tree and landed right in front of us. No stumble, no grunt, just thud. It crouched again when it hit the ground. Those long legs bent low. Its arms hung weird, too long, and I remember thinking, it doesn't care we saw it, but it doesn't want to stay. Lisa screamed. I couldn't. My legs gave out. I dropped to my knees and just stared at it. I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. Then it turned. It didn't roar, didn't threaten us. It just bolted on two legs, like a human sprinter. Long strides, no sound. It didn't break a single branch. It disappeared into the trees like it had done it 100 times before. By the time the other kids came running, it was already gone. Lisa was sobbing. I was shaking so badly I could barely talk. We didn't tell anyone, not our parents, not the other kids. Nothing. We just couldn't. It wasn't that we thought no one would believe us. It was that we didn't want to say it out loud, like naming it would make it real again. But a few weeks later, I overheard my dad on the phone with the neighbor across the street. He was standing in the kitchen, talking low, and I was hiding just out of sight. Someone's dog had gone missing, then another, then a third. The woman on the other end told him she'd seen something in her backyard just before sunrise. She said, "It was taller than any man I've ever seen. It was just standing by the tree line, still as a statue." Dad told her it was probably a bear, but I could hear it in his voice. He didn't believe that either. Nobody brought it up again. Not at school, not at church. People knew something was off, but no one wanted to be the first to sound crazy. Lisa and I never stepped foot in those woods again. Not once. For years, I wouldn't even look across the street after dark. Even when I was grown and had a kid of my own, I caught myself saying the same thing to him. Don't go near those trees. Stay out of that patch across the road. He'd ask why. I'd say, just don't. He didn't need to know. But one night after a couple glasses of wine, I told him. He was grown by then, old enough to see that I wasn't joking. I told him what I saw. The face, the jump, the silence when it ran. When I finished, I said something I'd never admitted out loud before. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a man in a costume. It wasn't some animal I couldn't identify. It was watching us, like it had always been watching, and it didn't want to be seen. That was the truth, the only truth I could say. He looked at me for a long time and didn't say a word. I don't talk about it anymore. Lisa won't either. If someone brings it up, she shuts down immediately. But I drive past that patch of woods sometimes when I'm visiting old family. It's still there. Same trees, same dead grass. Someone put up a chain link fence years ago, but it's all rusted now. Leaning. Doesn't even go around the whole thing. No signs. No warnings. Like someone started building it to keep something out or in, and then gave up halfway. I don't know what we saw that day. It only happened once, but it was enough. Story 8. We lived in one of those boxy military housing units on the base. PMQs. Every one of them looked the same. If you've ever lived on a base, you know the kind. Government-issue dullness. Ours had this weird old basement with a door bolted shut that my dad once told me used to be a bomb shelter. I never went down there. When I was 7, I broke my leg falling off a swing, snapped clean, and I was stuck in a cast for weeks. My dad moved my bed into the living room so I wouldn't have to do stairs, and he set up my clunky old computer beside me. I used to play this old game, Buzz Aldrin's Race into Space. I didn't even really get how to play it, but I liked the music. Since I couldn't move around well, they gave me this frying pan and a pot to bang together in case I needed help during the night. Dumb, yeah, but I was 7, and it made me feel like I had a weapon or something. One night, I don't know what time it was, probably way after midnight, I woke up because I thought I heard something. Not loud, just a shuffle, like someone stepping onto carpet from hardwood. I froze and kept my eyes on the entrance to the living room. For a few seconds, nothing. Then this hand, just a hand, curled around the doorway frame, like someone was peeking in. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I stared straight at the TV screen, which was turned off. We had one of those old, thick glass TVs, and it reflected like a mirror. I thought maybe I could see who it was through that, and I did. There was a man standing half in the hallway, half in the dining room. Same build as my dad, same height. But the uniform was all wrong. It wasn't modern. It looked like something out of a history book. World War II, maybe. Tannish. Too many buttons. I remember thinking the boots looked heavy, like they weren't made for walking around inside a house. My dad had been deployed before. Sometimes he'd leave with only a few hours' notice. But this guy, something was off. He wasn't moving right. It was stiff, like his limbs didn't know how to be quiet. And the face, there wasn't one. I swear to God, there wasn't a face. Just this dark blur where it should have been. I reached over, grabbed the frying pan and pot, and just started smashing them together as hard as I could. Bang, bang, bang. I wasn't even trying to call for help at that point. I just didn't know what else to do. The thing in the TV didn't react. It just turned, walked away. I could see it head toward the kitchen through the reflection, like it was taking a slow stroll through our house. No panic, no rush, like it lived there. Then right as it turned the corner out of sight, my dad burst into the living room, already halfway to me. "What's going on?" he asked. "There's someone in the house." I remember saying it fast, like I didn't want the words to leave my mouth. He didn't hesitate. Grabbed the aluminum bat we kept by the front door and stormed down the hallway. I could hear him checking every room, every closet. Then he came back and got on the phone with the MPs. Within minutes, the neighborhood was lit up. Flashlights everywhere. Our neighbors were out on their lawns in their robes and jackets. Military police were sweeping the perimeter, checking windows, doors. They even pulled a couple of guys to look in the basement, even though that bomb shelter door hadn't been opened in probably 30 years. They didn't find anyone. No footprints, No signs of a break-in, nothing. My dad didn't say much after, just told me to try and get some rest. He stayed up all night though, sat in the recliner beside my makeshift bed, eyes locked on the hallway. I didn't sleep again for a week, and I never saw that man again. But I still remember how he moved, like his bones didn't fit right in his body, like he was wearing that uniform not because it was his, but because it was attached to him. I don't tell people this story anymore. They either laugh or try to explain it away. Dream, sleep paralysis, childhood imagination. But I know what I saw. I know what uniforms my dad wore. I know how he walks. That thing wasn't him. That thing wasn't anyone. Story 9. I grew up in Alabama, but my dad's side of the family had this old house deep in the woods of northern Georgia, far enough from civilization that your phone signal died 10 miles out. I was maybe 8 when this happened. We'd visit every summer, like clockwork. I never liked going. Even as a kid, I felt like something was wrong out there. The woods didn't make normal forest noises. No birds, no bugs, no wind. Just quiet like a mouth held shut. My grandparents lived in this creaky 2-story cabin, surrounded by tall, skinny trees that looked like they leaned a little too close. The kind of place that smelled like mildew and old furniture no matter how many windows you opened. This one summer, it was just me, my little brother, and our parents staying the weekend. My brother and I shared this small guest room downstairs. He was 5 and still slept like a rock. The bed was pushed up against a wall with a window, the kind with thin curtains that barely did anything to block the light. He liked sleeping on the side near the window, so I always took the edge closest to the door. Anyway, it was morning, early. I know that because the sun was coming in, that golden kind of light that makes everything look fake for a few minutes. I woke up before him and rolled over to face the window. That's when I saw it. I thought it was a deer, a huge one. Its antlers were like a tree, massive and tangled, and it was standing right outside the window. Its body blocked most of the light, so I could only really see the outline, just this dark, perfect silhouette standing dead still. It had to be inches from the glass, not even blinking. I didn't move. I just stared. I remember thinking how strange it was that a deer would come that close to the house. I'd never seen one that brave. Then it did something I can't explain. It reared up, like a horse. And it didn't come down as a deer. In one motion, it went from 4 legs to 2. And when it stood up, it wasn't an animal anymore. It was a man. I froze. I don't mean that lightly. I literally couldn't move. I felt something tighten in my chest, like I couldn't breathe right. The way he moved was too smooth, like he'd done it 1,000 times. His body was just a shadow, but I could tell he was young. Built like someone who worked out, but not bulky. Not like my grandfather, who looked like he'd been carved out of granite. And not like my dad, who was out of shape even back then. This figure was something else. It stood there totally still, except for its head, which turned just slightly, like it was looking into the woods, not at me. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My little brother kept sleeping, completely unaware. I remember thinking, is this a dream? But I was wide awake. I felt the scratchy quilt. I heard the floor creak somewhere behind me. I smelled my brother's night pee on the mattress. This was real. Then just as smooth as it rose, the thing turned and walked off. Not back into the woods, not toward the road, just sideways, still close to the house, like it had a destination. I didn't get up. I didn't wake my brother. I just lay there, heart punching my ribs, eyes wide open until the light turned white, and I heard my mom moving around in the kitchen. I didn't tell anyone that day, not even my brother. I don't know why. Maybe I thought if I said it out loud, it would make it more real. Later, when we were packing up to leave, I tried to see if there were any tracks outside the window, but the ground was hard and dry. Nothing. Years went by before I ever brought it up. I asked my dad once if any weird people lived near Grandma's place. He just laughed and said the nearest neighbor was a half-mile away, and he was a Vietnam vet who barely left his porch. I don't know what I saw. I want to say it was just a kid's imagination, a weird morning dream, a trick of the light. But I can still see that moment, clearer than I remember most of my childhood. That deer, those antlers, the way it stood up like it had done it 1,000 times before. It wasn't a man wearing antlers. It wasn't someone playing a prank. The way it moved, it wasn't pretending. Story 10. I grew up in a nowhere town in northern Wisconsin. You'd miss it if you blinked. Just woods, fields, and dead-end roads. Our house sat about 2 miles off the main highway, surrounded by thick forest on all sides. I was 14 that summer, 1996, and had the run of the place. My mom had just left my dad, my sister was gone, and he worked long shifts at the mill. I was alone most days, just me and my cat, Rufus. No internet, no cell phones. My world was trees, dirt, and whatever cassette was in my Walkman. That day wasn't special, it was just hot. The kind of heat that makes the air feel heavy. I just finished a PB&J and went to check the mailbox, a good 10-minute walk down our gravel driveway. Rufus followed me like he always did, tail swishing like a metronome. He was weirdly protective for a cat. If a bear or raccoon was around, he'd act twitchy. Saved my ass once from walking into a porcupine. I remember hearing the cicadas buzzing like crazy when I left the house. But by the time I got to the end of the driveway, it was dead quiet. Not in a peaceful way. It felt wrong, like when the power goes out during a storm and everything feels hollow. I grabbed the mail, just a utility bill and some ad flyer, and was about to turn back when Rufus stopped dead in his tracks. His ears went flat, tail puffed out like a bottle brush. That's when I heard it. Heavy movement, twigs snapping, underbrush crunching, right across the road. Maybe 15, 20 feet into the trees. My first thought was a deer. They were everywhere out there. Then I thought maybe a bear. I wasn't scared. I'd seen them before. They never bothered me. I actually started walking toward the sound. Rufus hissed once and bolted back toward the house, but I didn't really process that. I crossed the road and stepped into the tree line. Just a few steps in, it hit me all at once. Everything was silent. No bugs, no wind, no distant birds. It was like being underwater. I froze. Something was watching me. I swear I could feel it, like a pressure behind my eyes. My stomach dropped and my skin went cold. Then I saw it. At first I thought it was a deer's legs. 2 of them, brown, covered in fur. But they weren't the right shape, thicker, too straight, and they didn't move like a deer's legs should. They bent differently. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was standing behind a cluster of trees. I could only see from about mid-thigh down. The rest was hidden behind branches. But it was tall, way too tall. And it wasn't standing like an animal. It was just there, completely still, like it was waiting. I wasn't breathing. I didn't even feel fear at first, just confusion. Then the thing moved, not fast, just a step, slow, deliberate. That one step is what broke me. The way it moved wasn't right. It was too smooth, too balanced, like it knew how to walk like a person, but hadn't gotten it quite right. I turned and ran. I don't remember making the decision. My body just did it. I dropped the mail, sprinted across the road and up the driveway, full speed, like I was being chased. Because I was. I heard it behind me. Whatever it was had weight. I could hear the ground give way under its steps, loud pounding thuds, and it was coming fast. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I just ran, lungs burning, legs barely touching the gravel. I think I screamed, but I don't remember the sound. I remember hearing the front screen door slam as I pushed into the house and locked it behind me. Then silence again. I dropped to the floor, heart hammering. Rufus was hiding under the couch, growling low like he'd seen a ghost. I grabbed the landline and called our neighbor, Greg. He was ex-police, lived a half-mile down the road, and always told me to call him if anything ever seemed off. I could barely speak, just kept saying, "Something's out there. Something's out there." He was at the house in 10 minutes with his pistol. He searched the woods where I said I saw it. Found nothing, no tracks, no broken branches, nothing disturbed. He looked at me like he wasn't sure whether to believe me or not. I must have looked insane, sweating, shaking, rambling. My mom came back later that day after I begged Greg to call her. She thought I'd had a nightmare or maybe heat stroke. I could tell by her face she didn't believe a word I said. I never went back into those woods, not once, not even to grab the mail. The trees didn't feel like home after that. They felt occupied. I've never seen it again, but that feeling, that wrongness, sticks with me. It's not something I can forget,